Good morning. How are you doing today? As we continue with another week of lockdown, one of the images that describes our situation best, even though we are confined to our homes, is that of being on a journey. For each of us over these last few weeks has started on a journey, as has everyone else. In every home, in every city, in every part of our world, though the experience of that journey will vary from place to place and will certainly be easier for some than for others. The problem is no one knows how long the journey will last or whether we're properly equipped for that, and by that I don't mean toilet rolls, and where we'll end up. Furthermore, there are no maps, for this is uncharted territory. All we have is our hopes and our fears. I suppose for many of us when this started, we saw it as a temporary interruption to our plans, an inconvenience that we would have to negotiate. Life for a while would have to go on hold. We hoped it wouldn't last too long and then we could get back to business as usual, expecting in future years to be asked, and what did you do during coronavirus, COVID-19? However, supposing it isn't like that at all, that however long it lasts and whatever turns are made, we end up in a different place from where we expected, and we have to get used to a new normal, a new way of living and of life. There is a story in the Bible about two people on a journey. They knew where they were going, they knew they had to get away. However, by the end, they ended up exactly where they'd started, yet everything had changed because they had changed and life would never be the same again. They didn't have a map, but they had something far better, a guide and a companion to accompany them on the way. The Bible is full of stories of people who need to travel to end up differently. When they finally get back home, they are transformed. It's the story of Jacob, or of Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law. It's the story of Israel returning from exile, and the theme of that best of all parables, the prodigal son. And our story from the lectionary from Luke's Gospel, chapter 24, is the story of two on the Emmaus Road, one of our immortal short stories. Two followers of Jesus are heading home from Jerusalem to Emmaus, about 7 miles away. One was called Cleopas. We don't know the name or even the gender of his companion. The journey takes time, for they're not walking fast. Indeed, they probably drag their feet. There's no enthusiasm, no joy in their speech. They don't talk and point to each other about the view or the flowers by the wayside. Indeed, I suspect they saw very little of their surroundings, for they were in mental lockdown. They felt distant and isolated from all that was going on around them, for they were in mourning and confusion, and they had no exit strategy. They had to get away from Jerusalem, but they couldn't stop talking about it, nor could they forget. Round and round they went, caught, condemned, crucified, dead. No wonder. They were downcast and dispirited. Their dreams and their hopes had been nailed to a cross. At the pace they were going, it wasn't surprising that someone behind them caught up with them. It was Jesus, who was all that they needed to get through this day and face tomorrow. Life with Mary in the garden, Jesus was not immediately recognized. And so, at first, even the risen Lord couldn't lift their spirits. They're trapped in the Saturday between Good Friday and Easter Day, and that's a very unpleasant place to be, as many can testify. The problem is that it's so hard for many to talk about things that go deep into their souls. The Scottish Reserve is a reality. Yet the only way they can truly be helped is to be set free to talk. And gradually the words come, prompted by the astonishment that this stranger does not know what they were talking about. Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened in these days? What things? He innocently replied. As well as asking the right questions, Jesus proves an active and attentive listener. And once the words come, they do not stop. They tell to him the story of the life and ministry of Jesus, of arrest and trial and crucifixion. And then comes the heart of it all. We had hoped. We had hoped that he was the one who would redeem Israel. The problem was not a failure of love or even a loss of faith. But hope was dead. Then, as now, we need a living hope that we will get through difficult times, whatever we're asked to face. The belief that a better time is coming. Now, these two had heard all the tales about the empty tomb on Easter Day. But the defining fact remained. Him they did not see. Jesus wanted to build resilience into them. And so he paints a broader picture, setting the immediate situation against the backcloth of God's purpose of grace, encouraging them, as it were, to step back for a moment and to see what God had done down through the generations. For hope, you see, is found when we discover the unfolding plan of God throughout history. And he must have told it in a riveting narrative. Your facts about Jesus may be accurate, but unless you stand back and get the bigger picture, you'll make no sense of it, and you'll get no solace from it. Can you imagine them then, one on either side, listening attentively to the stranger in their midst? For the sake of historical context, I should explain that social distancing was not a thing then. They found themselves hanging on his every word, reliving familiar stories, but seeing them with fresh eyes. Hearts that had been burdened and broken only a few minutes before were now burning as hope was rekindled and joy reborn. God had not been defeated. The promised one was, of course, the coming king, but he was also the suffering servant. At the junction when they might easily have gone different ways, the stranger was persuaded to join them for supper. They wanted his company and conversation to continue, and they cared, needlessly as it happened, for his safety. Seating at table with them, Jesus took bread and broke it. Whether it was his mannerisms in doing so, or the sight of his nail-pierced hands, suddenly they realized who it was that was with them. And then he was gone, as quickly as he had appeared. All thoughts of settling down for the night had gone. They retraced their steps to Jerusalem, their hearts now bursting within them. Faith had taken wings. Hope was on fire. The opening of the scriptures and a shared meal with Jesus had accomplished that. They longed to tell the 11 of their meeting, and found that they'd already met with the Lord themselves in their absence. Yet their testimony was another link of confirmation. He had risen. He was alive. At this time in our lives, when uncertainty rules, when we do not have a map to guide us or a blueprint to follow, we have still in Jesus a guide who has been to the deepest places of abandonment and conquered. So when we listen to his voice from the Bible, as we share a meal together in his name, he will still lead us forward, either to new places or to see where we are with new eyes and the new opportunities that may arise. And you know, that's always a journey worth making. God bless you.